Now, we were talking about a couple of things earlier today that I wouldn't mind bringing up again. You were talking about the lumber industry here in BC
Yeah.
and the status of it at this point in time. You got some interesting ideas you should probably share.
I read a good article by a guy called John Bink. Apparently he owns 3 secondary lumber processing plants. I don't know if he makes plywood or particle board or what, but he's up north in the constituency immediately north of us. So me being a prairie boy, I don't know that much about lumber. And I can't hardly even saw a 2x4 without jamming a saw. But anyway, because I now live where I live in the central interior of BC, I've learned from that somewhere in the order of 75 or 80% of BC's lumber industry, which is massive. It's one of Canada's hugest economic engines. And I'm not talking BC, I mean Canada.
Yeah.
And the lumber industry in BC, it has been for 100 years a huge economic engine for Canada. Mr. Bink says that the stars have all lined up against us all of a sudden here, and he wasn't political. That's one thing I really liked about his article. He said that everybody's into finger pointing. Well, that isn't going to fix anything. And people like to point fingers at the NDP because the lumber industry is in crisis. Well, the fact of the matter is, most regulations that they're having to deal with, whether it's carbon taxes or ICBC or the suffocating regulations, come in under the Liberal government. So old John Horgan gets a bad rap on that. Nevertheless, then Mother Nature stepped in and got all these beetles here, and Mr. Brink, to his credit, said that's one of the few things that's not some politicians doing. That kind of stuff, it just happened. And because it happened, we had all these millions of acres and board feet of lumber that the beetles killed, and it was a case of use it or lose it. So that it just made sense to go out and harvest all this beetle-killed lumber. Well, I don't know if I remember the figure exactly, but I'm going to say the harvesting rate used to be somewhere in the order of 60 million board feet per year. And all of a sudden, with this beetle kill on our hands, it virtually doubled. Right. And of course, the industry, like the industries always do, geared up to handle this enormous increase in inventory. Yeah. So what that meant was, a lot more logging trucks, a lot more mills, a lot more jobs, whatever. So it looked like a blessing, but it come back to bite us, and it's going to bite right now, because the beetle kill wood is all gone. But what's happened is the infrastructure that expanded to take care of that beetle kill doesn't have enough wood now, for 2 reasons. 1, the beetle kill wood's gone. 2, the acceptable cut rate or harvest rate had to be reduced, because the beetles didn't do us a lot of good in some areas, so we actually have less trees to harvest. So instead of 60 million board feet a year, we've had to cut that back to 40 million, 20 million board feet. So it's a perfect storm. The other thing is, we've got, and I learned this from my friend, he owns one of the largest trucking and forest harvesting companies in BC. I asked him to tell me what he thought, and I'm just passing along what Greg told me. Anyway, he said, in this perfect storm, we've got stumpage rates that are too high, because apparently stumpage rates are based on the market. So right now we have a low market, a low supply, and high stumpage rates. How does that work? And apparently the BC government owns 15% of the forest, and they sell lumber at auction, and from the price of that the government receives for that lumber, that then determines, sounds like a good plan, the stumpage fee. So the stumpage fee is tied to the market price. It should fluctuate up and down in unison with the market price, but it doesn't. Like all bureaucracies, it's 6 months to a year behind. So a year ago, lumber was pretty near twice what it is now, so they put the stumpage rate up. Now lumber's worth half what it was a year ago, but the stumpage rate is still there. And my question for the government is, how come every time gas prices go up in this country, every little service station in the country, I don't care where it is, he's adjusted his price by morning? How come these stumpage rates are so far behind? And in addition to that, Greg said it was you know, the suffocating regulations that they have in the logging industry. So, and Mr. Bink said, if you think that we've had a crisis in the forest industry in the past, you ain't seen nothing.
Yeah.
This is really this is going to be devastating. And he said, mills are closing. Still more mills are going to, I think he said somewhere in the order of 16 or 18, are going to have to close, not just because the beetlewood's all gone, but because of this perfect storm of taxation, regulation. So my friend Greg, he suggests this to me, because he's an entrepreneur. And what I like about entrepreneurs is they can think. Bureaucrats only have policies, which is the license to turn your brain off. But entrepreneurs all think. So Greg suggests to me that, you know, we're a free market party. You know, we're the party of free markets. You know, we don't like the government meddling in the markets. That's why Max is so hard on what do they call it? Supply management.
Yeah.
We think the markets are the best way to run an economy.
Laissez-faire economics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're that party. The liberals aren't. The conservative. I mean, Andrew Scheer's in bed with the dairy cartel. You know, he openly flaunts it. You know, drinking the milk carton on TV. You know, it's just sickening. He mocks us. You know, he mocks all Canadians for being so gullible. Anyway, Greg says, take this to your people in the PPC. So we sure will. And that's why we're talking about it now. And he said, you know, and of course this is my thoughts on entrepreneurial mindsets. Donald Trump, who I personally don't like, but I like the way he governs, and I like the results he gets, but he wouldn't be my pick for, you know, a
Personality of the year.
No, I wouldn't want to go on a fishing trip with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's an entrepreneur. He wrote the book called The Art of the Deal.
Yeah.
And as I said to you earlier, Glenn, one thing I've noticed about entrepreneurs is deal making is in their genes. It's in their blood. They're like drug addicts when it comes to a deal, you know. And our own best example right here is Jimmy Pattison, who just last week initiated a deal to take over Canfor. Now here we got a man. This is an entrepreneur from Saskatchewan. I like that. Come from nothing. This is what I mean about entrepreneurs. Here's a man who's 90 years old, you know, initiating a deal.
Strong.
That's got a 20-year time frame. What's he thinking about? He must be Methuselah or something, you know. But nevertheless, he's an entrepreneur. He can't resist a deal. Neither can Donald Trump. So my friend Greg says, why don't you take this to your party and take it to the border? And I think it's a great idea. He said, Donald Trump hates our supply management. Because if we would surrender supply management and Donald Trump could brag about it, which he is prone to do, that goes right into the heart of America, into that Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois country where all the dairy, that is vote-rich country for Donald Trump. So we got a little plum here for Donald Trump. We got something he wants. We got supply management. What Donald Trump, and here's part of this perfect storm that's going to kill our forestry industry. We got a 22% duty down here at the border for Canadian lumber. We have no access to that, or I shouldn't say no, but the duty stops us from accessing. Yeah. In the meantime, I should mention China's backing off. You know, they're not going to buy anything. So we're losing our biggest market. America, of course, is the biggest market in the world. So if we could gain free trade, free access to that, just for giving up 9,000 dairy farms that are on supply management. And you know, I love milk. I drink it every morning.